How's everyone doing today? Welcome back to On the Ball, and it is time to pick our Premier League team of the season. Me and Sim have both picked our 11 players. I think we've both gone for 4-3-3. You gone for 4-3-3?
I have gone for 4-3-3.
So I guess we'll just get straight into it. We'll start off with the goalkeepers. Who you gone for?
I've gone for David Raya of Arsenal. I think he obviously had a little tough beginning and had that poor game against Luton, which a lot of people at that point were saying, why is he replacing Ramsdale? But I have to say, he's second half of the season especially, he's been near faultless. Arsenal have kept the most clean sheets, and I actually think he's been a big part of that with how commanding he's been. I think he's so good with the ball at his feet as well. So unfortunately, I have to go for David Raya.
Interesting. I mean, I think there were a few standout goalkeepers this season. You're looking at David Raya. I thought Jordan Pickford was very good this season. Vicario, although Vicario did tail off towards in terms of his set pieces in the second half of the season. But one goalkeeper I thought has been pretty consistent, bar a couple of blunders towards the end, was Emi Martinez. I think he's been really commanding of his box. Yes, Villa have conceded a fair few goals this season. I think it's 51 or maybe a bit more. Or maybe it was close to Tottenham, wasn't it? How many goals that we actually did concede. But I felt like the saves that he was making kept Aston Villa in games at times. I think he's closest to the top of the league for post shots XG. I think it's at like 7.2, which shows how good and how consistent he has been throughout the season. So I've actually gone for the Emi Martinez. I think he's been really underrated by some people as well, I think. So
Fair enough.
I've gone for Emi Martinez. Let's move on to right backs. Who you gone for?
Kyle Walker. I think he's been, even though obviously he's getting on a bit, I think he's been super consistent, such a consistent performer in that Man City back line. He's always performing at a very high level. Obviously, when it comes to attacking output, I think he's got 5 assists this season, but it's more about how defensively solid he is. And obviously, he's captain of Man City. He's such a big player for them. And I had him in the back line because I just thought, I think he made 30 appearances this season. I think he's been super consistent throughout the whole season. Barely put a foot wrong. So I had him in there.
Yeah, I was toying with Kyle Walker. I was also toying with Ben White because I think Ben White in this second half of the season has been pretty spectacular with 4 goals, 4 assists. First half of the season, I think, did let him down a little bit. I have decided to side with Pedro Porro. I had to sneak a Spurs player in there somewhere, and this is the guy I've gone for. First half of the season, he was spectacular. He really was. Second half, I think his attacking play did let him down somewhat, but he has ended the season with the most goal contributions out of any fullback in the Premier League. I think defensively, he's been quite consistent throughout the season, apart from the system maybe letting him down at times in terms of how high he's caught up the pitch. But with 3 goals, 7 assists throughout the season, a goal in the cup as well, I've just about sided with Pedro Porro. I had to sneak him in somewhere.
Fair enough. I've got maybe a Spurs player somewhere else, so don't worry about it.
Let me guess where. Anyway, let's move on to the centre-backs. Right centre-back, who you gone for?
William Saliba. I think he's just been played every minute of every game, literally been on top of his game for every single performance for Arsenal, literally been impossible to beat. Obviously, at the beginning of the season when Arsenal was stumbling a bit, he was a little bit of a part of that, but I think literally for about 90%, 95% of games, he's barely put a foot wrong. And he's going from strength to strength, unfortunately, Saliba. He's so consistent. And he's so strong, so tall, so agile, and he's so fast as well. You can't really get in behind him. Couldn't look past him.
Yeah, I've gone for the exact same player, William Saliba at right centre-back. You cast your mind back to last season. Arsenal season kind of fell apart when he got injured, and that was a reason why, contributing to their bottle job at the end of last season, he has stayed fit for the rest for the season, and they've just been seem to get better defensively. As the season has progressed. They've hardly conceded any chances throughout the season. Their XG against is absolutely insane. I think the least in Europe or something like that. So you got to give it to William Saliba. He's been a standout performer for them, was nominated for Young Player of the Year as well. And he probably had a shout to be nominated for Player of the Year. That's how good he has been. So William Saliba gets into right centre-back, left centre-back. Or left centre-back.
Yeah, I went for Gabriel. I do think he's had a stellar season. I think he's been really consistent. He did have a bit of a wobble in that iffy period where Arsenal seemed like they threatened to stumble against the likes of Villa and Bayern. They went out, and I thought Gabriel actually didn't play very well in those games. but he did recover from that. It didn't let it affect him, and he ended the season very strongly. Also, a massive threat from set pieces, which has really helped Arsenal in certain games break the deadlock, and he's been a big part of that. And I think he's really balanced Saliba on the other side really well with a bit more of an aggressive nature. He gets stuck in a lot more, and I think this season he's had a fantastic year. So I went for Gabriel.
Yeah, I've gone for the exact same player in Gabriel. It's hard to ignore these two players when it's their partnership that have really helped Arsenal in their defensive solidity this season. Like I said before, it's been the best in Europe, and this partnership has been the best in Europe in terms of a defensive two. I was toying with Virgil van Dijk because I think Van Dijk kind of did get back to his best, but then I did think like in the last stage of the season he did slip a bit and regressed a little bit. So I think Gabriel for the consistency throughout the season. I actually think when you're comparing Gabriel and Saliba, I do think Gabriel has been a bit better in terms of not just the defensive wise, but offensively as well. How, like you said, how much of a threat he is from those set pieces. So yeah, it's hard to look away from those two, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Left back, who you gone for?
Destiny Udogie. I think he's just been the most consistent left back throughout the whole season. I think he's obviously his first season in the Premier League. I think he's taken to the Premier League by storm. I thought some of those early games against the likes of Saka and Salah were absolutely brilliant. And I thought there were games where he was under the cosh a bit, and you looked like he was under pressure, and he came out on top of those situations really, really impressively. Obviously, last month or so of the season, he was suffering with a bit of an injury and tailed off a bit. But if you look out throughout the whole season, I think he's been absolutely outstanding. And I think both offensively and defensively, one of the best left backs in the league. And I think he's been the best in this season.
Yeah, it's kind of a flip reversal. You went for a City right back, I went for a Tottenham right back, you went for a Tottenham left back, and I have gone for a Manchester City left back in Josko Gvardiol. Took a bit of time to get used to the way Pep likes to play, and you know, he came in as an orthodox centre-back and he has been moved out to left-back, and I think he's been improving so much as the season has progressed. Second half of the season, particularly in the last few months of the season, he's been such a key player for Pep Guardiola, and I think maybe Destiny Udogie has been a bit more consistent throughout the season, but I just can't ignore the last 3 months or so that Gvardiol has impacted in Man City to winning the league title. The goals he scored have been so important to them. I think 4 goals, 1 assist for Gvardiol throughout the season, and I just think he's been brilliant. So I've put him as my best left back in the Premier League this season. Let's go to CDM.
And who else but Rodri has to be there. I think Rodri, for me, hands down the player of the season, in my opinion. I think it's not even close compared to what he's been able to put on the pitch on a consistent basis. I can't believe he got absolutely robbed not being chosen for player of the, even nominated. I thought it was disgusting how they didn't nominate him.
Yeah.
But he's hands down player of the year because he's the best defensive midfielder by and large in the league. He literally performs like an 8 or 9 out of 10 every single game, and on top of that, he's now getting regular goal contributions. I think close to 9 goals, 9 assists or something like that.
8, 9, yeah. 8 goals and 9 assists.
8 goals, 9 assists. Ridiculous numbers for a player who plays in number 6. Absolutely ridiculous. And for a player who plays in number 6 to the level that he does, it's quite astonishing. So for me, it's not even close for player of the year. It has to be Rodri. And on that basis, he has to be in the team of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I can't not agree with that. He has been hands down the best player. Whenever he's not playing for Man City, I went for Rodri as well, by the way. Whenever he's not playing for Man City, they look like they have a gaping hole in the middle of that park. You saw when he was out injured or suspended, I can't remember what it was, at some stage of the season, that's when they went on their wobbling period. As soon as he's come back, they win every single game. I think they lost that game against Aston Villa when he wasn't in the side, and then he comes back and they didn't lose for the rest of the season. And I think he was an integral part of that. What a player he is. Like you say, adds those goal contributions this season. I think this has been the biggest disrespect in player of the year since Harry Kane didn't win it that year, where he got all those goals and all those assists in one season. Yeah, and that's it's an even bigger disrespect that he's not even nominated when you got players like Alexander Isak. And don't get me wrong, Alexander Isak has been brilliant this season, but he's been not a touch on the class that Rodri has shown throughout the whole season. So I think unbeaten for over 70 games or something in a Man City shirt.
It's a disgrace. It's
Which is
absolute
mad.
disgrace.
It's absolutely mad. So he's hands down he's the best, not even the best CDM in the Premier League. He's the best CDM in world football right
by
now.
far.
In world football. So Rodri gets in at CDM for sure for both of us. Who gets in as your next midfielder?
On the right, number 8, I've gone for Declan Rice. Obviously, he has performed in the number 8 quite a lot this season. Did start the season in the number 6, but when Partey and Jorginho were coming into the team, he has performed quite a good role there. Obviously, he's been such a consistent performer for Arsenal throughout the whole season. Signed him for 100 million, yet no one's talking about the price tag just because of how high his level of performance has been consistently. And it was also, credit to him, a bit similar to Rodri, also added quite good goal contributions to his tally on top of what he gives you on the ball, which is really good ability to carry the ball. He always makes the right decisions with his passes as well. He knows when to release the ball, when to hang on to the ball. His passes, whether it be long or short, are very, very consistently on point. And he's been getting some goals. And obviously his set pieces have been so crucial for Arsenal this season as well. His corner kicks on the money more often than not, which have led to Arsenal being the best set piece team in the league this season. So I went for Declan Rice.
Yeah. And I've gone for the exact same player in Declan Rice. Unbelievable season he's had. When you look at a big money signing from into the Premier League, I can't remember one that's worked out as well as Declan Rice. You know, he's come in, he's completely suited the team. Arteta has found a different role for him as well. Sometimes in the 8, sometimes in the 6. Whichever one he performs it to a really high standard. He's been an integral part of why Arsenal has been able to sustain this challenge all the way till the end of the season. And you can see the gasping hole that's left in that West Ham midfield as well, with the amount of batterings that they've taken this season. Moyes said it himself, didn't he? Like, they asked him, why have you taken so many batterings this season? He just responded, Declan Rice. Mm-hmm. So Rice has been incredible, and he's been signing of the season, and he definitely deserves his spot in player of the season, that's for sure. But let's move on to your next midfielder.
Yeah, Phil Foden. I've put him in the centre, which is a position he's played a lot this season. Obviously, De Bruyne was out for a lot of the first, or pretty much the whole of the first half of the season, and Foden had to essentially take the mantle off him, and I think he's done absolutely amazingly to be where he is this season. I think the goal contributions speak for themselves. He's really been Man City's main attacking player, I feel, this season. And to say when the team with De Bruyne and Haaland and Bernardo Silva and these kind of players to be even a level above those players this season is an astonishing achievement. I think he does things with a touch of class as well. He's got so much quality in both his feet. He's got an unbelievable first touch. Some of the goals he's scored, he does it so effortlessly. And he's adding those consistent world-class finishes from outside the box to his game, which is something which is fairly new for him, with those shots from 25 yards right into the top bins consistently. He scored the 3 goals, the same goal from 25 yards, which is incredible. And I put him in the number 10 position. Yeah,
I've actually gone for Martin Odegaard of Arsenal. I did think that he took a while to get into the season, but once he arrived, he was so integral to this Arsenal team, going all the way. The amount of chances, I think he's created the most chances in the league this season, most expected assists in the league this season. His pressing from the front makes Arsenal really hard to play against. Leadership ability as well. How many goals? 8 goals, 10 assists this season for Martin Odegaard. So, yeah, I think he played it in a different way last season, where he just got goal contribution after goal contribution after goal contribution. This year, the numbers are still high, but I just think he's been such an integral part, especially when Arsenal kicked on from January until the end of the season. He's been one of the best players in the Premier League for me, so I have gone for Martin Odegaard. Let's go on to the right wing.
Yeah, Cole Palmer. Who else but the wonder kid this season, signing from Man City in the summer, you know, as a bit part player for Man City, or, well, I think even bit part is generous considering the minutes he was getting. And he really backed himself this season to go to a place where he's going to be starting week in, week out. And, you know, if he would have got 5 goals and 5 assists, I would have been saying he's had a good season. The fact that he absolutely exploded and, in all competitions scored over 20 goals, also got over 10 assists as well. An astonishing first season, and really showed his potential that a lot of people have been banging on about. And I've been so impressed with his ability to consistently make an impact for Chelsea in a very much struggling Chelsea team for most of the season as well. Even in their good run late in the season, it wasn't Palmer central to that. He was really stepping up when they were mid-table in the doldrums, really struggling. It was always almost a one-man show. Pochettino at times saying, part of our attack at times is just give the ball to Palmer because he's making the difference. And to do that, 21 or 22 in your first ever season as a regular starter is an incredible achievement. He's really shown the whole Premier League what he's all about, and he just scores great goals. He does what I love about him is he doesn't always do flashy things. He does simple things really effectively, and I think he's had an unbelievable first season in the Premier League.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've also gone for Palmer on the right wing. Every single thing Chelsea have done offensively has come through him or ended off with him. He's been absolutely brilliant. 22 goals in the Premier League for Cole Palmer is just insane. 11 assists as well. Yeah, he has scored a high number of penalties, but he's actually won a lot of those penalties. So you've got to give him so much credit to come in from, the player's mentality here was top because he wasn't going to be starting week in, week out for Manchester City. He knew that. He said, I want to go to a place where I'm going to start every single week. And he went into Chelsea. And, when he went into Chelsea, everyone was saying, wow, 45 million for Cole Palmer. That's a bit steep. And now, when it's all said and done, if they would have spent 100 million on Cole Palmer, it would have looked like a good deal and a good bit of business for Chelsea. He has stepped up all the way through the season where other players haven't been, and just an unbelievable season, and well worth his Young Player of the Year award that he did pick up. So, and it's going to be exciting having him in the England frame for the Euros because he's never been really talked about in the frame as one of England's key players, but he's definitely pushed himself into that conversation now.
How many caps has he got? 1 or 2?
Yeah, exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see how he impacts the game at international level.
Yeah, left wing.
I've gone for Anthony Gordon on the left. I think an astonishing season for Newcastle. Obviously signed last January for them, or 2 Januaries ago. So he's been there 18 months now. And I thought 50 million, was a very steep price for someone who hadn't shown maybe the ability he's shown for me this season on a consistent basis. And he's started for Newcastle. I don't even think they signed him to be a starter straight away, which is why I think they signed Harvey Barnes in the summer, who I think they signed to, be that player on the left wing competing with Gordon. But Gordon has just been so unbelievable, so relentless at taking on his fullbacks, an absolute nuisance off the ball. But he's actually added that quality, which I thought was lacking from his game in previous years. And I think his numbers speak for itself. 16 goals, 11 assists, astonishing numbers from such a young player as well. He's added that ability to really consistently finish when cutting inside. And Newcastle have had to lean a lot on him this season because Isaac, Barnes, Wilson have all had big injury problems throughout the season. And Gordon's been the only mainstay really in the attack. And the fact that they're potentially getting a European place for next season is a lot down to him. And he's literally carried Newcastle. And to do that, to carry a club like Newcastle at such a young age, in your first basically full year at the club, I think is remarkable, and I couldn't look past him, so I had Anthony Gordon in my team.
Yeah, he has been brilliant, but I had to fit in Phil Foden somewhere, and I went for Odegaard in the 10, so I've gone for Phil Foden on the left wing. I think he's played a lot of games in the cam. He's played quite a few games at left wing as well this season, and I think he's just taken it up another level this season. He really has. I've been going on about Phil Foden for a number of years. Whenever we do our predictions, I've always put him as Young Player of the Year, but this year, he's not just won Young Player of the Year, he has won Player of the Season in the Premier League. Whether you think that's right or wrong, his performances have deserved a special mention. He's come in clutch a lot of times for Man City. You look at the amount of goals he scored, 19 goals, 13 assists. That is just monstrous numbers. And he's finally recognised himself as a key player for Manchester City. You look at last season, didn't get a start in the Champions League final, came off the bench in a lot of games. This year, he's really said to his boyhood club saying, I'm here, I'm going to start, I'm the main man now. And I think that's exactly what he's shown. Unbelievable season from him, and I think he's just going to go on from strength to strength now, which Phil Foden, unbelievable player, unbelievable ability, and he really is starting to show it on a consistent basis now. So I've gone for Phil Foden at left wing, and now we move on to last but not least, and that is the striker.
Yeah, and I couldn't look past Ollie Watkins. Obviously, I'm not putting in the Golden Boot winner, which is Erling Haaland, but I just think Ollie Watkins is such a vital part of Aston Villa's play. I think literally their whole attack revolves around Ollie Watkins, his ability to hold the ball up, bring other players into play, run in behind, be a striker, attacking crosses as well. He can make chances for himself with his physicality. And I think it's 19 goals and 13 assists this season. He actually got the Playmaker Award for the season for the most assists, which goes to show how effective he's been as a chance creator for Aston Villa, not just a goal scorer. And yet he's still getting closer to basically on the verge of 20 goals this season as well going forward. And, you know, if you compare him to Haaland, look, you take Haaland out of City, what happened in that, 5-game stretch where Haaland came out didn't really affect them. They won just as easily, scored just as easily. I think Foden stepped up, scored a hat-trick, and City don't need Haaland to win games like Villa rely on Watkins. And I thought he an astonishing season for him, so consistent as well throughout the whole season. Didn't let his standards drop pretty much throughout the whole year, and I think he definitely deserves to be the striker of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I went for Ollie Watkins as well. I've been super impressed with him this season. He had a good season last year, but this year, again, like I said for Phil Foden, just took it on to a completely new level. Hold up play, running in behind, finishing ability. I don't know what he can't do, really. An unbelievable player, threat from set pieces as well. Not only did he do it in the Premier League, but he did it in the European campaign as well on a consistent basis. This guy well deserves the striker of the season. And I was saying he could have been in there for Player of the Year. He was nominated. When I did say that, I was kind of dismissing Rodri. I mean, not even thinking about Rodri, and that's maybe why he wasn't in the running, because he's just so does his business, just so consistently. It's easy just to overlook him, but you shouldn't be overlooking someone like Rodri. But Ollie Watkins is definitely up there with the best 3 players in the Premier League this season. That's how good he's been. If he got a long sustained injury this year for Aston Villa, they would not be making the top 4.
I think they could have been out the top 6.
Yeah, easily. And I completely agree with your sentiment about Haaland. You take him out of the City team, it doesn't really affect them. You take Ollie Watkins out that Villa team, it affects them dramatically. And it's much easier being a striker in the Man City team than it is this Aston Villa side or any other side really in the Premier League. And he has just stepped up to the cause and been a vital cog in that system. So Ollie Watkins has to get a striker of the Premier League this season. We didn't pick managers, but you didn't pick manager?
I think it has to be, well, I was going to say it has to be Pep, but I think Unai Emery probably getting in the top 4, semi-final of a European competition. They did, to be fair, they did fall away quite badly after they beat Arsenal. They actually won 1 game of their last 6 games or 7 games after beating Arsenal at the Emirates. So I think in another season you might be talking about a bottle job. They're just maybe a bit lucky. The other teams around them didn't take advantage, but having last season taken over from them, in disarray under Steven Gerrard, getting them from that point to a Conference League position was already an amazing achievement. But to kick on from that, get them into top 4, and also have a deep run in the Conference League. They'll be disappointed they didn't maybe get to the final there, but to be in Champions League for next season is an astonishing achievement for Unai Emery, and I think he probably just about deserves manager of the season ahead of Pep.
Yeah, I am going to go for Pep Guardiola, because I think that if Spurs win one more game, then I don't think you're putting Unai Emery as manager of the year. And I think that the drop-off at the end of the season was significant. In Europe as well, they lost very much a winnable game in the semi-final, which is very unlike Unai Emery against Olympiacos. So I did think they bottled it towards the end. They were just lucky that they came up against an even bigger bottle job in Tottenham Hotspur, which was at the time. But Pep Guardiola, you got to remember, just before December, everyone's saying, "Oh, what's going on with Man City? They don't look at it. Are they really going to win the 4th in a row? Never been done before. Record breakers. Can they do it on the back of a treble-winning season? Do they have the motivation to keep going?" And then they lose to Aston Villa. The conversations intensify, and everyone's like, "Nah, this Man City are dead. They're 3rd in the league. They're not catching Liverpool. They're not catching Arsenal." After that game, they did not lose a game for the rest of the season. And to go from the early December and not lose all the way till the end of the season, I think it's just astonishing, on the back of winning a treble as well. I mean, I don't understand how anyone can look past Pep Guardiola this season in terms of what he's achieved, how he keeps making tweaks to his team and getting other players to step up year on, year out. Gvardiol was a player. Rodri was there last year, but I think he's got even better this season. Phil Foden, obviously. And Erling Haaland, nobody's even talking about Erling Haaland this season. He scored 27 goals, and everyone's talking about like he's had a poor season. I mean,
10
it's
less
just
than last season.
It's just mad. It's just mad the levels and the standards that he has set for this Manchester City team. And Arsenal, you look at the run Arsenal went on from January till the end of the season, and they still couldn't win the league. That's just another testament to how good Pep Guardiola is and how good he's managed this team this season. So he's just an absolute freak of nature. He really is. And yeah, everyone goes about the money, the this, the that. Man United have spent more money. Chelsea have spent more money. But no one can do it quite like Pep Guardiola does it. So do you think he's the best manager in Premier League history? 4 in a row. 6 and 7.
4 in a row. It's hard to say no, especially how dominant they've been.
You've got to get in the high 90s to get anything off him. And even then, you might not.
But I guess the difference is it's hard to compare because obviously Fergie you didn't have to get as many points to win the league, so it's hard to judge. Obviously, if Pep was then, would he be getting 90 points or would he be getting also similar to what Fergie got like back then? Fergie as well, you got to give credit because for over 30 years, he was regenerating, continuing on 13 league titles. So I think his ability to regenerate teams on a consistent basis. I mean, obviously Pep's done that as well because he's gonna have been here nearly 10 years at the end of in 2026. He will have been here 10 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, is it Fergie? Is it Pep? I mean, Fergie also won a Champions League. Pep's now won a Champions League. Well, Fergie, how many Champions League won? He won 2 Champions Leagues.
2008 and 99.
I mean, if we're talking just Premier League, I mean, Fergie was just as dominant, so it's hard to say. I mean,
never won 4 in a row, though.
Never won 4 in a row, but he did do 2 three-peats.
Yeah.
So how many three has Pep's done? One three-peat?
One. Yeah, last year was the first one.
Difficult. I think Pep tactically was better. I think Pep
just because like the competition is just getting better and better and better in the Premier League, and you've got teams finishing on like 95, 97, 89 this season, and he just finds ways to get more than that. It's just unbelievable. And you look at every single season from January onwards, they're just machines. And I think if Pep was going up against Alex Ferguson, I think Pep would have done it more than on a consistent basis.
Well, that's usually how their games between Man United and Barcelona ended up, but that was Barcelona.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're probably right. I think.
But do you not think
Pep was ahead of his time? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you put him back in that era, would it have been different? I don't know. It's hard to say. It's impossible. But yeah, Pep, I think, has the better teams. I think that's fair to say.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, there you have it. That is our teams of the year this season. Who's do you like the most, mine or Sim's? But put your team of the year in the comment section below. But thank you, everyone, for watching us today. Like, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you next time.